a crack. Tom and Jack having a crack.
Do the introduction, I'll say what I'm saying.
Welcome to Tom and Jack having the crack. It's a boys only episode this week. Got me, Jack, Lucas on the ones and twos.
Hello.
That table's come forward, Lucas, has it?
It has, yeah. We've made some space.
What's it? So you're giving more space to the producer and less to the guests?
It seems so. Just trying to make it as spacious as we can. It's not very spacious for.
And did you feel very
container.
cramped before that?
A little bit, yeah. We had lots more stuff in there.
Did you? Was there? Were people lodging complaints or giving feedback?
No complaints. Just the odd banged knee and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's
Hey,
it.
bang me.
You've stolen a lot of space there now.
Yeah.
I have.
I've
Taken up
noticed
some
that.
I know.
Yeah.
You guys taking this Big Belly comedy rebrand very seriously, aren't
Very
you?
literally.
Yeah.
Very and are they new monitors as well?
These ones, yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Everything's.
I should
new.
do observational comedy, shouldn't I? Yeah, nothing gets by
gets
me.
past.
That was your room joke.
Yeah.
Nothing gets by me. No, Tom. Anyway, what's the crack? How's life with you?
Yeah, grand. Yeah.
Anything you're loving, hating, or working on?
Do you know, actually, I'm working on this bit at the minute, and feel free, any and all observations on this. So, obviously, there was another school shooting in America.
This was the girl.
This was the
Woman.
Nashville one, yeah.
The woman did the shooting.
Yeah, and it's like that's added a whole layer, hasn't it? Whole, like, is it a trans shooter or the whole situation?
Oh, was it a trans woman rather than a woman?
Yeah, it was someone who's transitioning. Okay. Yeah, I don't know where they were at in their transition process, but they were transitioning from a woman to a man. And so I was thinking, like, these things keep coming out. It made me think like this idea. When I was living there, I was like, gun culture in America, it's hard to understand if you don't live there, but like, they think it's enshrined into it is enshrined into their constitution. They have good reasons to have guns. And if you live in rural America, like you want a gun.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, like, we're very quick to judge about it, but we have a bigger problem in this country with alcohol. And I started looking into the stats, and like, if we were as big as America, we'd have more alcohol deaths every year than
They'd have gun deaths.
they'd have gun deaths.
Really?
Yeah.
And how are their alcohol deaths?
High, not as high as ours.
Because prior to Prohibition in America, they were drinking a phenomenal amount. The Americans were like way more than what we were drinking in Europe at the time.
And I don't know if like
because they were drinking spirits. They had more of a culture drinking spirits.
Yeah, rather than like beers and stuff.
Yeah.
So anyway, contemporarily, we seem to have a bigger problem with alcohol than they do.
Right.
And I was thinking, like, is that, and we don't really get as much shit for it, I don't think, culturally, that we have this problem killing. And I was thinking, like, there's a lot of similarities where, like, we defend it because it's ingrained in our culture and it's fun and we enjoy it.
Yeah, but what's the average age of the person dying from alcohol?
I don't know.
And what,
the average age of someone dying from a gun actually is older than you think because it's most of it's suicide.
All right.
Two-thirds of gun deaths in America are suicide.
Suicide related.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose, well, this is an interesting one. About road traffic accidents.
Yes.
So road traffic accidents are massive killers, but it would, as someone who follows the news in Ireland and lives in England, whenever there's a fatal road traffic accident in Ireland, it nearly always makes the news. Like it's big news in Ireland, but it never gets really reported here. So you would probably think here that there's not really many people dying on the roads, but there is. And I suppose with the gun deaths in America now, it's always reported.
Yeah, well, a specific type of gun death.
It's
always a school shooting, which is obviously it's horrific. Obviously, it's tragic. But the bigger thing that doesn't get reported is 2/3 of it's suicide. It reminded me actually. There's a Hemingway short story all about it, about like how Colts and Smith and Westons are like the best.
Hemingway committed suicide
with a shotgun.
With a shotgun.
Yeah, because he was like they cure everything. A Colt and a Smith and Weston's a cure for anything: depression, loneliness.
Yeah,
like debt.
But I suppose it's essentially it's the same problem because our alcohol problem is capitalism and the company. every time you try to make laws that slightly curb alcohol use,
Yeah.
you're going to have a massive lobby coming against you. Like you probably didn't realize this. You know, when ecstasy came out, like the alcohol industry were the main people who were, fighting against that.
That makes
like,
complete sense.
Yeah. They saw that as they were terrified, and I think that they had a real dip in sales.
Yeah.
I think in the 90s or something when ecstasy was really at its peak, they had a real dip in its sales, and they really went after. To make sure that was very much demonized and really they really wanted to plant the seed that this is far more dangerous than alcohol.
Well, that problem's back now. So when I was working on like Anheuser-Busch brands, they're terrified. Like the dip in sales of alcohol amongst anyone under the age of 30 is like precipitous.
Right.
And so it's just because kids prefer doing drugs. Like kids, they're 30, but people younger than us prefer doing drugs because they can get on with their lives. Like they don't have hangovers.
Doesn't slow them down.
Doesn't slow them down.
Much.
And there's not the stigma. Like if you think about, I don't know what you'd been like, probably similar. When you were 16, can you imagine getting like everything filmed, everything you did filmed, being like sloppy, messy, vomiting, and they just don't like having that stuff like
the lack of control.
Yeah, it's like alcohol brands are terrified because obviously every alcohol brand, especially beer brands, your core demographic is like 25 to 35. And if they stop drinking booze, and as much
Yeah, but I thought the biggest drinkers were in their 60s.
So it depends whether you go by value or volume. So this is fucking nerdy. Welcome to Beer Chat. Tom and Jack having the crack. But because the value's in the younger people, because they're the ones at the bars.
Okay.
So they're paying £6 a pint.
And the older people are
drinking at home.
Oh, right.
Spending a lot less. Maybe drinking more, but spending a lot less. And certainly not helping you drive the brand forward. Because if you could think about all of our parents or older people we know, they've always got like some random selection of booze in the house. We're like, you can still find that? I can still find that. Whereas like...
Peron.
Yeah.
Limoncello. I wouldn't know where to buy limoncello.
Limoncello. They make it in Italy, in the Amalfi Coast. They all make it locally.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Yeah, the most middle class story of all time. We were on holiday in the Amalfi Coast, and a guy renting the house from came and brought limoncello. And
the house.
Yeah, and he was like very Italian man. He said to my mum, my mum's half Italian, so he was like saying to my mum like, buongiorno, bella donna, limoncello, you want to try limoncello? And mum was like, okay, thick Yorkshire accent, like, okay, love. And he brought it out. And he's like, I one for you, one for you. Didn't pull one for my dad. One for you, one for you, one for you. And we tasted it. It might as well have been poison.
So strong.
So strong. So strong.
Yeah. But
Like,
they just
brutal.
brew it themselves. Yeah, we got a lift from the airport to the hotel once, and the guy pulls them out of the boot that he made at home.
Yeah.
He said everyone makes it.
They do, yeah, because they have so many like oversupply of lemons. There's like basically just let them ferment. I mean, that's how alcohol came about, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's like fermented fruit. So just let them ferment in the sun, and you crack on.
Then you go for it.
Yeah. So
young people work more, and
Yeah.
they haven't decided their brands yet.
yeah, and that's why this Bud Light thing's come about.
Go on, what's the Bud Light thing?
So I'm sure everyone's seen it in the news, but Bud Light causes controversy in America because they put a trans superstar on their cans.
Right.
Like actually on the can. And I was thinking about it because I've worked in advertising for so long. I used to work on Anheuser-Busch brands. I was thinking, I know exactly what's happened in that room. They've gone they've looked at the chart and they've gone, we're losing sales amongst young people. And then someone's come in with a trend report and gone like, what can we, what are the options to make us trendier and whatever. And they've picked that as a trend. It's very cynical, really. It's not really about like, standing behind. It's just like, they're just going like, this is the trend of the moment.
Let's jump on this.
Also, the other thing that's fascinating for like, when people look at ads and go like, how the fuck did that get approved? It's because somebody at the client side is so desperate to be liked, so desperate to be thought of as cool, they'll just pick some thing that makes them look cool. So they've gone for that, and they've forgotten that most of the people who drink Bud Light are like either not college educated or
Housewives.
housewives.
Would that be Bud Light?
No.
I worked in a pub in America. I would have thought that a middle-aged woman would drink Bud Light.
So a lot of women drink light beer.
Yeah.
For sure. But the majority of Bud Light is like going to a shitty college.
Right.
Or didn't go to college.
Okay.
Like dudes. So like that's and it's huge with sports, like watching American football, watching baseball. Like Shane Gillis would be like your archetypal
Bud Light
guy. I mean, he really, if anything, Shane Gillis would have been a great
match for Bud Light,
but he's like problematic, and they don't want to put their brand behind him. And it's ended up wiping, as of today, I think $5 billion off the share price of Anheuser-Busch. And share price is tricky, right? Because it's like day to day, it can fluctuate and it moves up and down. But I was like, I'd love to be a fly on the wall in the marketing meeting now. Because I know what will be happening. They will be like, well, this just proves how transphobic America is, and this proves how problematic America is. And I think actually what it proves is people don't like big corporations having a moral stance when they know that...
Maybe it's more just that it was the wrong match.
It's a terrible match.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't think it mightn't be so much that big companies get away with moral stances, so it's not that.
Well,
and it mightn't necessarily be that it's transphobic. It's maybe just the analysts are looking at this and they're going, this doesn't match because, like you said, they're trying to become trendy, but they may be alienating the people already had. Guinness had this problem, when discos come out, like nightclubs, right? Yeah. And everyone started going to nightclubs. Guinness's sales plummeted, right? Because, they do the whole stop, the way they stop. So when the nightclubs are busier, the bar was busier, people weren't waiting to get their Guinness, right? So then Guinness did the extra cold and you didn't have to stop. You could just pour it all the way through. And then they got a bit alienated because they were losing young drinkers. But by trying to gain the young drinkers, they started to lose the older drinkers because the marketing got a bit confused. And if it wasn't for Nigeria and Africa, Guinness would have gone under in the 1990s.
Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah. The only place where they kept selling was doing well. And then they sort of recovered, and then they were finally able to get they went back to that more artistic kind of marketing that appeals to old people, but then also they got they sort of then became trendy with young people. It sort of became like almost a sophisticated, sort of thing. But like they bridged that gap eventually. But then nightclubs are not, had their peak. Like they're not the same as they were.
Yeah, because I think wherever you are, if you're a brand, a comedian, a filmmaker, whatever, if you try and chase a trend that isn't authentic to you, it just ends horrible.
It's just always a gamble. It can end. If it works, it's brilliant. If it's
kind of, but I think even if it works, it's a short term win because you have this giant problem with like alienating people who actually like you, which is, and again, I think it's the same for comedy, it's the same for everything. Whatever. Yeah. Like if there's a group of people, if you try and chase kind of like the trendy end of anything, and that isn't you authentically, and there's a group of people who already liked you, and you lose them.
Do you know? I watched the documentary about David Bowie last night. That's David Bowie in a nutshell, isn't it? He kept changing with the times,
and that's but it's authentic to him because he was like his thing was being like on the avant-garde
changer.
So that's great. That's awesome for him because he's not trying to pretend.
I heard, I was doing gigs up in the north of England. I heard a story, I won't say the comedian, but you'll probably be able to guess. But I heard that basically when he does shows now, people expect crowd work. And he finds it very hard not to do crowd work because if he doesn't, they're like, well, that's...
I didn't get the show.
That's what we want. That's what we wanted, like,
Yeah.
And... yeah, so it's. I suppose that's in everything in the brand. So
it's like Bert Kreischer. He has to take his shirt off now
and do the thing.
He has to, and he has to do the machine story at the end.
Yeah.
I guess you could look at it as a prison, or you could look at it and say, well, for him, I'm just going to make my shows an hour and 20 minutes rather than an hour.
Bit of a gilded cage. I guarantee you, he goes through periods where he hates doing it, and then he goes back through periods where he's like, I'm the machine.
Yeah. We've all had that feeling where it's like, oh, even in our little small way, like, oh, this joke, I've done this joke for a while, it always works, blah, 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 blah. I'll try reorder it, and then you don't kill. And you're like, oh.
Yeah. It's like a one-hit wonder, kind of.
It fluctuates.
Or like your biggest hits, like everyone wants to hear the hits, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you're always changing. Brands, I suppose, are always changing too. Like they say, every 10 years you're a completely different person than you were previously.
Yeah. It's that I think is fascinating. Where like, is there a core bit of you that kind of the rest of it revolves around, or is it like you're shedding a skin and there's nothing left of you.
Nothing.
Left of you that's 10 years. That's 10 years old.
That's 10 years. Yeah, it's a weird kind of one.
I tell you what's interesting on that point. If you ever look at like we're probably the first generation that can do this. You look at old Facebook stuff.
Oh yeah.
From like 2009, 2010. And you're like, who is that guy?
Yeah, I'm completely different.
Who is
Yeah,
that
yeah.
person?
Yeah.
Well, like I got like I was like clear out my WhatsApps the other day, and it wasn't even from that long ago. It was maybe like 5-6 years ago. And I looked at the way I was talking to my family, and I was like, "Who is that? Like, who is that person?"
That's funny. I don't like looking back. Never have.
It's a bit scary, isn't it?
Yeah. Some people love to look back. I never like to look back at anything.
Do you have friends who are like, high school were the best?
Oh, Jesus Christ!
I can't stand
Are you
it.
kidding me?
I can't stand it.
I have loads of friends like that who they like it's like they've never moved on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like.
But I think like, how unhappy are you? Because you can't go back. There's no way of going back. So like,
Yeah, I have a lot of friends who are very stoic.
right?
You know what I mean? I don't know if you friends like the Stoics. They did X, Y, and Z because they believe you're supposed to do X, Y, and Z, and they never believed it was meant to be enjoyable. It was meant to be just what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And you know, and that's you know,
Yeah.
so they're doing it, and you're just sort of like, well, you have options.
Yeah. so I think I was like had a little bit of that in my upbringing, and one time we were away with Ram. We're in Stockholm, and I was like, oh, I don't want to. I was like, I don't want to go get meatballs, but I do. We're in Sweden. I do quite want to get meatballs actually, and I just feel bad though, Ram, because you don't eat meat, and we're gonna have to go to this restaurant and da da da. And his tense went, bro, you can have the meatballs.
Yeah, do whatever you want.
And I was like, whoa, that's such a good metaphor for life.
Yeah,
like,
you can have the meatballs.
You can have the meatballs. Like, you're not hurting anybody.
Yeah.
Like, it's fine. You can
Do
enjoy
whatever
yourself.
you want.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize that you can do whatever you want. Like obviously you have to suffer the consequences one way or the other. Like, but
Yeah. But the consequences might be you're trapped in an environment you don't want to be trapped in, and you think you had to be trapped in it.
yeah, I always think that. Have you heard the Jim Carrey one? Which is great about his
Go on.
dad being an accountant. Have you ever
Yeah,
seen
but it's
that,
a great-
Lucas?
I don't think so. No.
Yeah, he gives a speech and he basically says his dad was an accountant, he became an accountant because it was a good steady job, but would have loved to have been a comedian.
Yeah.
And then he got made redundant in his 50s and never recovered. No, was never able to get another job or whatever. And he finishes it by saying you can fail at the life you don't want to have.
Yeah.
So you might as well pursue the life you do want to have.
Yeah. Very powerful.
Yeah. And then I saw it in Ireland, like in 2008 in Ireland, like family fortunes and people who had spent their whole life working got wiped out overnight. Like overnight.
Yeah.
You know, I seen people who were worth millions and then they were worth nothing.
Yeah.
And they didn't do anything wrong.
Well, I think as well, if you've done that and it's very easy. We all do it. Like if all your validation for who you are has come from that
So
external
external, yeah.
source of like, I'm building up this nest egg or whatever it is, and it goes away, then who are you when all that's...
When it's all good. Have you been watching The Last of Us?
Yeah.
Have you watching it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, so that, you know, like the whole, everything just gets wiped out. I was watching that. I was thinking about this bit of material. I was thinking, you know, you watch it and you obviously you start thinking, I wonder what it'd be like to live in a post-apocalyptic world, you know? And then I was like, you could just go out and ask a homeless person what their life is like. Because they're living in it. Like, their life is like that, you know?
Yeah.
What did you think of it? It's good.
Oh yeah, I enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember like when the game came out. I loved.
Did you play the game?
Yeah. I love the game when it first. Because it's like 10 years old now, 12 years old.
I haven't played a computer game since like Mortal Kombat 2 or something. I stopped playing computer games when I was 18. From 12 to 18, I played a lot and then stopped.
You stopped.
Yeah.
I think it's a great story. I think my thing watching it, I'll be honest, the first thing I thought was like, it's funny how Hollywood picks a person and then just runs with them.
Pedro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like of all the actors, of all the people trying to be actors every day, all around the world, and they just go like, you're going to be in everything for like 3 years.
He's very good though.
He's very good.
Very good.
No,
Yeah.
he's
But that's the Pareto's law. So it is. It's Pareto's law. Like when you're on people's minds and.
Yep.
Because what else? He's in Narcos. He's great in Narcos.
And Mandalorian.
I haven't seen. Is he in Mandalorian?
Which is massive.
I haven't seen.
Yeah.
that,
So and he's the lead in that. So he's
the
like,
lead in that as well.
Yeah. So he's have a lead in three
big shows.
3 massive shows. Then he was in Game of Thrones before that. And
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it's just funny how they're just like, yep, you're the guy for a while.
Safe bet.
Safe bet. Yeah.
Safe bet.
Yeah, because they're all trying to make money back. There's actually an interesting thing about this. Matt Damon, of all places, was doing an interview on Hot Ones. You know, the chicken wing show where you have to eat hot wings.
Matt Damon was on it.
Yeah. Dude, that guy gets massive celebrities on.
Okay, I've never even. What is it? It's a YouTube thing.
Yeah, it's a YouTube thing. So it's basically this guy, this great premise, a few years ago now, of getting famous people on, and they have to eat progressively hotter chicken wings, and try and maintain a conversation. And there's something about like really spicy food. It's kind of like being put in cold water or something. Your body shuts down. Yeah. And they get very honest, and they get very like, they'll just tell you anything because they want the spice to go away or whatever. So Matt Damon was on there, and the guy asked him, why don't you get as many good independent movies now as you got in the 90s? Like, he was making like Good Will Hunting, Talented Mr. Ripley, and all those sorts of things. And he says it's DVD sales. Like, streaming's killed that option because you used to release a movie, and
DVD was where it made its money,
and that's where it made its money because the word would get around. It gained like a cult following, and it was basically like you would open the movie again. Commercially, it was like opening the movie again. So it didn't matter if it had a weak box office. You're like, oh, we're going to keep making money on this for 10 years. As people keep buying the DVDs. Whereas now it gets licensed into a streamer. It gets packaged up in that $14.99 a month bundle, whatever it is, and you're fucked. So unless you have a monster cinema release, or basically you're being subsidized by
the streaming
people. Yeah, it's like unless because the streamers want to win awards and stuff. So unless you're being subsidized that way or having a monster weekend, there's no way of making money on it. And he's like, it's just fucked. He's like, that's why you see TVs where all that creativity's gone.
It's gone to TV, yeah.
Because like the BBC can still commission stuff like that, or Channel 4 can still commission stuff like that, or heck, HBO can still commission stuff like that.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's kind of reassuring in a certain way because there is a part of you, like part of me that's like, I don't see that there's making good movies anymore, and then you're wondering, have I just got old or something?
Yeah, I know.
There's something wrong with it, but like this, actually,
there's an actual thing.
This is actually happening. Like,
there's a streaming service called Mubi that streams exclusively to independent movies, and that's like a really good place to watch up and coming indie movies. If you wanted more independent movies, that's a good place to.
This episode is sponsored by Mubi.
I think so.
Use code Tom and Jack.
The best movies are foreign movies now. So, like, I think other countries, whatever their economic model is, it's still working for some other countries.
Yeah, maybe because they have smaller industries, and maybe so, like a big weekend has a different pressure. Maybe. Also, sometimes, like in France, I know, for example, they have to have a certain amount of French cinema in the movie theaters at any given time. So the government,
laws,
so the government will provide funding for
it.
Yeah, and so then like you're kind of mandated to go and see some French films because that's all that's playing that weekend or whatever. So that really props it up that way. But I have the same fear as you about the old thing.
Yeah,
because like I'm 38, you're 40, right? Yeah, it's like we both hit an age where you could easily slip in. You've got a choice now. You can slip into your 60s like prematurely, or you can try and like, I don't know, it feels like you're hanging on to your youth. But there is a thing where you don't want to get caught being like, God, these kids today, I don't understand them.
Yeah, I'd never be like that, but I have less interests.
Yeah.
As you get older, you definitely you find things less interesting.
Yeah.
But I guess, do you know what it is? It's, do you ever see the thing that they say that there's like 8 archetypal stories?
Yeah.
And I suppose you've just seen them all so much. Because I was, from about the age of 6, I would say, to about 16, I was obsessed with football.
Right.
Played football every day. I'd watch every game I could watch. If I couldn't watch a game, I'd listen to it on the radio. And then after a while, it just was like, it died out. It just got to a point where I'd never really seen a player do something I hadn't seen a player do before. You know what I mean? It's just like, they cross it in, the guy had headed, I'd be like, saw that. I know the game evolved, it like tactically and everything had evolved, but it just didn't seem as exciting or as impressive to me anymore.
You've gone Roy Keane very early in your life. Just doing his job. Just doing his job.
Yeah, it really just lost. The magic just disappeared for me. Like,
I think that's so real. I think the novelty of life wears off a little bit.
Yeah.
Like you've encountered these situations before. You've encountered this type of person before.
Yeah.
So the novelty, the magic of it is like, oh yeah, I've seen that. I get that. So yeah, you are less excited.
You get less excited by things. Definitely you get less excited by things. Now, here's a good question for you. Would you like to live forever?
Would I like to live forever? Well, if I could maintain a body that was like healthy.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I want to stay. I'm not like not my body at 25. Maybe like if I could stay now.
Yeah, forever.
I think. Do I have the option of killing myself, or do I have to live forever?
Yeah, you can kill yourself.
Well, if I could kill myself, then I would say yes.
Yeah, of course you'd say yeah. Okay,
Because then if I can choose to end it,
right. So we're not going to get. No, I'm not going to give you that option.
Right,
Make it a bit
right,
harder.
right.
Today, either die today or live forever.
Die today or live forever. Yep, I would take live forever. I think.
So I was always a live for, like, because I obviously I work in pharmacy. So the first time I kind of got this sort of conversation going at work was I was talking to an old woman who came into my pharmacy, and she was 98, and I said to her joking, "You live to be 100," and she went, "Oh, good God, I hope not." Right, and I remember thinking, "Fucking hell!"
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
And I just was stunned by her answer. And then, like the older people, I started asking more and more people that, and then what I started to realize is most old people, they don't want to live that long.
Yeah.
And then I started asking that question: would people like to live forever? And everyone was no. Like,
so that's where I agree with you. So I'm saying if I can age like an elf in Lord of the Rings, which I think I probably am, but if I could just stay 38 forever, that's different. Like, do you just like hang on in this?
Yeah, but what I think happens is, and this is what the bit that I'm starting to realize a little bit more, is that the world changes so much that you start to feel left out. Like, I know what puts the old people off is like it's not so much their physical thing. It's just that the things they enjoyed, the things they like, all disappear. And suddenly they look out and they see this cultural landscape that makes no sense to them, that doesn't give them any
solace.
There's no satisfaction or buzz out of it. Or
I remember when my great grandmother died. She was 93.
Yeah,
she was born in 1912. So she'd seen, when she was a little girl, she'd seen the first car come to the UK, and then she'd seen an aeroplane for the first time, and then just before she died, she like saw the internet happen. And I remember thinking when I went to stay in the hospice just before she died, I remember thinking like, what a wild ride.
Oh yeah.
Like, you've gone we only get around on horse and cart when you were like born, came over on a steamship from Italy, and in your lifetime people have been like flying around the world, and then now you can send an email to me while I'm like traveling.
Sure. Planes have to be the biggest shock to the system, I think.
Yeah,
more so than the internet. The internet is kind of like it was so subtle. Like it, I don't think at any, because we grew up with the internet. Like it wasn't around when I was child, and then it came along. But it came so incrementally that it never seemed magic. Like it never seemed wow. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It never blew me away. But planes must have really blown people away.
Yeah. Yeah, the idea you could just be there and then
be there. I remember the things, when you're growing up in Ireland. One thing I remember a teacher was telling me that when people first went from Ireland, well, not first, but when people went from Ireland to America, they used to come. One girl came back and she was asked what was it like, and she goes, "They eat outside and they shit inside." Because in Ireland, people ate inside and shit outside because everyone had the toilets out the back of their house, right? And then my mother said to me when she first went to America in the 60s, the thing that blew her mind was escalators.
Wow.
There was no escalators in Ireland or Britain.
Yeah.
And she went to a shopping mall and they had escalators, and she just thought that was insane.
Did she manage it okay?
She was all right, yeah. But it just blew, they just seemed, that was her.
Yeah.
That was the thing that
America,
was the future.
America in the middle, from like the 60s till the 2000s, America was just like a magical. I remember even when we went on holiday there as kids, it was like a magical place.
Well, did you ever read Bill Bryson's book about America?
Which one? So I've read one of his books, but
it's not a travel book. No, it's
the history book.
The history book, yeah. And after World War II, America had 2 decades where they basically had something like 80% of the world's wealth was in America, which is just insane.
Yeah.
Like, they were so rich. Everyone else was so poor after World War II.
Yeah.
And America came out of the war richer.
Yeah.
And everyone else came out poor.
When you think how wild, it seems so normal now that someone with a job can own a house. But that's such a novel, that's actually such a new idea. And that was a big thing after World War II, wasn't it? Like everyone
had a washing machine. Everyone had all like appliances. Everyone had a house, 2 cars, all the appliances. The whole of it, everyone in America had that. The rest of the world had nothing.
Yeah. It's which is why I think it must have seemed like a crazy magical place when you went and visited.
Oh yeah. Because you could go over. You didn't need any university qualifications. You get a normal job.
Yep.
And you'd be able to get yourself a house, 2 cars, washing machine, the whole lot.
Yeah.
Oven.
Yeah. I mean, even like in the night, in The Office, when was that made? 2000. They have that whole storyline, don't they, where Dawn and her boyfriend and them, they want to move to Florida because they're like, I can have a great standard of life here, yeah, compared to Slough, which would have been true then, probably less true now.
Yeah, it's less true now.
I mean, I've got 2 mates who are living in Greensboro, North Carolina, and they're getting ready to have kids. He's Australian, she's from New Jersey, and they're like, they want to move to Australia because they're now too worried about bringing up a child.
So they say that Australia is now what America was. That because of the China influence, Australia is going to have a couple of decades where it's very easy to be middle class.
Isn't that an interesting thing for Australia, where like they are, in terms of like political alignment, they're aligned with the West.
Yeah.
But in terms of trade alignment, it's China.
Yeah.
And they're going to have this very interesting role of like maybe like being the deciding vote or like a power broker or having like
well, they're going to be
maybe more influential than they were 20 years ago or whatever.
It's tricky because China manipulates Australia.
Yeah, of course.
And then like they're obviously letting America in to help them defend against being manipulated by China, but America's just going to manipulate. They're going to get manipulated by both sides.
Yeah. Well, that's why maybe like whether you're a power broker or a deciding vote, because I think you can be a deciding vote without being powerful.
Yeah.
Because you can be like, well, we're going to.
Oh yeah, it's like an
MP
having the balance of power.
Exactly. Yeah. So you're not a big shot yourself, but you happen to be the one person.
You're in a nice spot. Northern Ireland could become that if they.
Yeah.
If they had a bit of sense, they could do that for Britain and Europe. They could build their economy like that. Because you see that Biden going to Northern Ireland, he basically said, listen, get your government back up and running, I'll give you $6 billion worth of investment. Do you know what I mean? Like Northern Ireland. But yeah, you're right. Australia, it's in the right, just geographically, culturally, it's in a sweet spot there.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I've got a mate who lives in Perth, and he was just telling me how it's just become everybody's focus is Indonesia and China. Every business and like culturally as well. It's like thinking about the food they get has changed completely in the last 10 years, and like TV shows people reference have changed in the last 10 years and all sorts.
Really?
Yeah. What was the thoughts on Biden in Ireland?
With people in Ireland, one of the things I thought was very funny about Biden now from an Irish perspective is watching the bitterness in the British media of, everyone's like, I watched a little clip on TikTok that I thought was hilarious. There was a load of British journalists being sarcastic, going, "Oh, did you know that Biden was Irish?" and the whole lot. And for Irish people, it's lovely to see the most powerful person in the world going around saying he's Irish, and it winding British people up, because we've seen this from the other shoe for quite a long time. You know what I mean? Like for anyone who's getting irritated by the fact that Biden keeps saying he's Irish, just think back to when you used to talk about your special relationship. You know what I mean? And the rest of me were all like, yeah, fair play to you with your special relationship. And think about every time, British people showed up somewhere and put on a ceremony to let the whole world know how fucking great they were. Well, you know what? In your fucking face. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? So I don't know if it's the general consensus about Biden, but I think a lot of it's a bit tongue-in-cheek. I think he is loving.
Yeah.
I think he's just doing it to goad Britain. Do you know what I mean? I think there's definitely a part of him that's just like,
because underneath all that, I think I know exactly what you're getting at. Like Ireland's still in the EU.
Yeah,
they've got all the big American tech companies are based there instead of London. There is definitely maybe an undertone of like, we could easily shift this specialist of this relationship.
Yeah, there's a lot of very, very interesting things happening.
Yeah.
One is Britain's got upset that he snubbed Sunak. They were meant to have a big meeting, and then they ended up having a small meeting. But while the only thing Britain has now that's useful to America is the army.
Financial infrastructure?
Well, it's not as it's
Still
not
the biggest-
yeah, but they've got Wall Street, so you know what I mean.
Yeah,
like
but
if-
in terms of if you want to trade a company, if you want to have a company trading in Europe or whatever, or in this part of the world anyway,
yeah, but why would they go to Britain now when they go to Paris?
they can. And I think,
Yeah.
and I agree with you. I think it's going to shift a bit more. But I'm saying currently we still
And the
have.
big British companies are still going on Wall Street. So the main thing you like they can do. The city of London could disappear and America would be fine. They'll be
Yeah.
fine. They'll be fine. But your army is still probably of some use to them.
Yeah.
But again, they don't even need your army because their army is huge. So you're not. It's just not an important country to them anymore.
No.
It's strategically. It's just not that important anymore.
I was trying to explain this to my dad that because like you met Jed, he's a big Tory, big Brexit guy, and I don't argue with him because there's no point.
Yeah.
You don't want to. But he was saying how like he basically he's got his thing of like recovery's just around the corner. That's his thing of like it's coming. And I was like it's not. I think from an advertising marketing perspective, the worst mistake the Remain campaign made was painting this picture of like a falling off a cliff.
A catastrophe rather than a slow decline.
Because then when it didn't happen, gives people confidence of like overreacting, classic, wet liberal reaction to yada yada. Whereas the reality is it's like a tire deflating. It's just a tire deflating, and like it doesn't look like it's gonna crash the car now, but sure as eggs, like over time it's just gonna get
keep going
keep
down.
deflating.
Yeah, so it's fascinating because like there's no votes in America by pretending to be British.
Yeah.
Like there isn't a British vote.
No.
You know what I mean? There's no like each side, and no matter what side you're on, because the Republicans are more like anti-monarchist or whatever.
Yeah.
Like they still celebrate the revolution over
Yeah,
it.
especially now because have you heard this whole rhetoric? The Republican Party now have stopped saying America's a democracy.
What are they now saying?
We're a constitutional republic.
Constitutional republic. Okay.
We were not founded as a democracy. We were founded as a constitutional
Oh,
republic.
is that what they're saying now?
Yeah, that's their big thing because they're like, that's why the electoral college still works. That's why it's not the worst thing in the world if people aren't represented equally.
Gerrymandering.
Like that's all fine because that's how we were set up. We weren't set up to. Which there is some truth in that. Like the reason the Capitol's in Washington and not in New York was to try and create these sort of almost like fake hubs of government,
right?
Where you could sort of like say, well, these farmers are going to get this representation, and that's why a Virginian farmer has as much right to vote, as much power as a banker in New York. So there is like some evidence in it, but it's a pretty bold thing to be like, we're not a democracy, we're actually we're a constitutional republic.
We know why they're doing it because they're becoming very anti-democratic.
Yeah,
in a lot of states,
and they do. And there's a reality which is I think it's true in this country as well, but it's definitely true in America. Lower turnout favors Republicans because Republicans vote more. What's the thing? Democrats fall in love, Republicans fall in line. So
right.
if there's a really good candidate, Democrats vote for him.
I think the Conservative Party in every country in the world, low turnout is always good.
Beneficial,
for Conservatives.
So they'd rather have a trickier vote.
Low turnout basically means young people didn't vote.
Mm-hmm.
So whoever attracts more young people.
Yeah.
You know.
Did you get a sense from watching back? Because he seemed like he had a bit more pep in his step in Ireland, but
I would say I've met Irish Americans. I've stayed with them. I've worked with them. He will be getting a great kick out of this whole thing. Like, I think Irish Americans are different than Irish people, and I think a lot of people don't understand.
Mostly in the sense they're not Irish. But yeah, go on.
No. I think they are Irish.
Yeah,
like I don't think they're not Irish.
I'm being silly.
But I think people don't understand their kind of thing. Like. Irish Americans have far more of a chip on their shoulder about things like the famine than people in Ireland have because they're the ones who left.
Yeah.
So the people who stayed in Ireland are the ones who were able to survive through the famine.
Yeah.
And in America, they call the famine, the famine here is known as the Great Hunger, but in America it's known as the Great Silence because they think that Britain and Ireland don't talk about it and we don't make... Now, Ireland has started to more, but for a long time... all the documentaries, all the books, they were all written by Irish Americans. People in Ireland weren't interested in really...
Why was that? Because it's like
I suppose
painful...
it's probably survivor's guilt or...
Right.
Do you know what I mean? And you got to remember, like, Irish people didn't help the poor. Like there would have been rich Irish people who could have helped the poor. So the Irish establishment, probably didn't do as much as they could have as well. So
and some of it would have sided with the British at the time.
Well, you would have had the ruling class, the Protestant ascendancy. They'd be still involved in official Ireland now and that. But when you went to America, it was a lot stronger. And certainly with JFK went on about that. And then Biden I think he's also he's trying to that myth is brilliant. Like the myth, JFK was the best at it, but Biden is trying to redo it again. So the JFK myth was his family had to flee Ireland because of famine, and then he helped land someone on the moon. So it's that's the American dream. That's the American dream. It's the perfect metaphor. And Biden is trying to play into that now again. So they love that arc.
Yeah.
But it is a very romantic arc that you can leave famine and then rule the world.
Yeah.
And he knows who his audience are in America.
Yeah.
If he can make the Democrat Party, again, the party of, you flee the narcos in Mexico, you could be the president of Mexico. That's the American dream. The Democrats need to sell the American dream. And when they get that right, they become very irresistible, really.
It is, yeah. And I think the two advantages I would say JFK had, we talked about earlier, America was going through an economic boom at that time, so it was probably easier it felt more authentic in culture to be like the American dream's possible. I think a lot of people now are umming and ahhing about whether or not
the policies he's trying to redirect it. He's trying to rebuild a middle class.
Well, it's interesting because student loan forgiveness. I mean, it makes sense because the people who don't go to college will never vote Democrat. So cynically it makes sense, but there's a ton of pushback in America about why is a middle class plumber who didn't go to college paying for someone's student loan who chose to do, I don't know, English literature at a 4th ranked college. Why is that middle class plumber with his own job now in his taxes? I'm not saying this is true. I'm just saying that's the.
Well, what do you think about that? Because that's a debate that happens here. So I would say there's a big difference between Ireland and Britain in this debate, because in Britain you pay to go to university. You get your student loan, and when I've talked to people like that, I've heard that argument going like, well, why should I be paying for this person to go off and have a good time and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Whereas in Ireland, because we were historically for so long, we weren't allowed to get an education. People weren't allowed to go to university, even if they wanted to. We were shut out from it. In Ireland, it's very much people are like, well, the more people that go to university, the better for us as a collective. Because if we're a tribe or we're a society altogether, the more of us that are educated to the highest degree that we're educated, the better for all of us.
So you've nailed it. I think the problem in America and the UK is the social utility of university is diminished dramatically.
Yeah.
So exactly what you said there, I think if that was still the feeling in America and the UK, people would be more encouraged to be like, yes, we want some people figuring out problems. We want some smart people. But and I know that a lot of university these days, I mean, my university experience, I don't feel like I was pushing myself academically to do much of anything.
Yeah, but it's still a learning experience.
Kind of.
Do you know what I mean? Like, okay, you're from a small town. Okay, well, let's do the example. The guy, a small town, you've become a small town plumber, right? But say we get this plumber and we send him off to a city 100 miles away, right? And say he goes and he doesn't do anything academic, just learns some kind of thing, and then he goes back and becomes a plumber. But going to that university and going to that city, he'll get exposed to people from different backgrounds, from different diversities.
I'm with you.
Do you know what I mean? It'll open up his mind a little bit. It'll take him out of his own little bubble, his echo chamber here. So even if he doesn't do anything from an educational point of view, it'll have a benefit.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think that university is a very blunt instrument to achieve that.
Right.
So I think about myself. I was like 14, 13. I remember saying to my mum, like, I'm going to live in London. We came down to watch a play, and I was like, I'm living in London. There's no if, buts, maybe. It's like, I'm moving. As soon as I can move, I'm moving. And I think I would have done that whether or not I went to university or not. And there's probably people who, we grew up with who like maybe would have moved to Australia or maybe would have moved to the UK or moved around, regardless of whether or not they went to uni. They probably would have just...
Yeah. But university will, you say it's a blunt instrument, but it does get more people to move from where they live to somewhere else than anything else does.
Yes, It does.
You know, and it's I don't think it's a bad thing to. Like you could tweak the university a bit, maybe give things a bit more practical, but it's still the best option we have. Like I still think I would still rather live in a society where there was a high percentage of people who went to university than one where there wasn't. I think I'm completely the other side of this. I think we should be making university like secondary school. Everyone should go.
So let me give you a hypothetical.
Yeah.
So rather than it being like an academic, the only option is to go to an academic institution.
Yeah.
We can agree universities are academic institutions.
Yeah.
So let's say rather than your only option being that, let's say when you finish school, you could do uni or you could do like an apprenticeship program.
Right.
And that apprenticeship program took place in another city. So you still went away to like apprenticeship school.
Yeah, well, certainly there could be more kind of degrees that are technician engineering based. We should be doing a lot more engineering kind of stuff.
Yeah, because I feel like
Germany does. Like everyone's an engineer.
Yeah, because there's loads of people I know went to uni who they would have benefited from. Well, put it the other way around. They didn't benefit from the academic side of university, but they benefited from having a collegiate environment. So, like, let's say if they wanted to go do something more practical, then maybe took them 2 years rather than 3 or 4 in America. They would have still got all the benefits you're talking about. But
even just you know the living away from home, like you know you don't want a society where you know like men live with their mother and then they move in with their wife. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not a bad thing that you're shoving men off. And they're like, well, you learn to cook, learn to iron, learn to do your clothing. Do you know what I mean? I think it should be, I would go completely the other way. Make it like secondary school. Send everyone off.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, make up more courses for them. Teach them something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I just think that... I think we'd gain from. Our problem is we've put a monetary value on everything, and everything is a transaction.
Yeah.
And it'll definitely lead to decline because it then becomes everything's about everyone comparison to everybody else.
Yeah.
Like I remember I organised staff dues, and if one person couldn't come, then it was unfair to that person. And then in the end, you end up doing nothing. When you start worrying about fairness and equity, you end up doing nothing because you don't want to upset people. Like you have to we end up don't building any houses for anyone because it's unfair that they got a house and I didn't get a house. Like once you start arguing about everything like that.
No,
you do nothing.
No, I'm with you. And we're probably stuck in a weird middle ground where university is supposed to still have this like patina or shine that it had when very few people went.
Yeah.
But we're not investing in it in a way that means everyone can do it. It's like the way you're describing it. We're in this weird middle ground where if you went to uni, you're somehow better or more advantaged or well you're supposed to be a better employee or whatever.
So there would have been a golden period where everyone who went to university ended up with big wage package, right? That's gone because the amount of people went has increased. But I just think we should make it like secondary school. There would have been one time where secondary school
was seen the same way.
And then we just made it a thing for everybody. Then it became a nothing, but it still advanced us a lot more.
Yeah, I mean high school. So I'm agreeing with you. I'm just saying we're in a weird middle ground where. Yeah, we're not doing either currently.
Yeah, so our middle ground with education is we haven't advanced and we haven't moved back.
Yeah.
And when you're not moving forward, are you really moving back?
Yeah.
So we're moving backwards.
We are because the world's moving forward. So
the world's moving forward. We're moving backwards on education.
Because the high school thing, that was a really big. I don't know which president it was, but it was a really big deal in America when they made high school mandatory.
Yeah.
Because think about farming culture. People were like, I don't want my child going to school. They need to be in the field. And they were like, no, everybody, doesn't matter where you live, everybody has to get an education till
it was huge in Ireland. And a guy passed it without running it by the rest of the government.
Really?
And didn't cost it. And just kind of was like, just sort of
smashed it through.
Just shoved it through and all the problems were solved afterwards. Like, but it's just, I suppose it's a lack of, education. We bring people primary school, then we give them a secondary school, then we start giving people education, and we brought more people into university. And we've stopped now.
Yeah.
We've stopped. We're like, we know enough.
Yeah.
We all know enough.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We don't need to know anymore.
But I agree with you. Like definitely the best things I learned at uni were like how to live on my own.
Yeah.
Meet new people from very different backgrounds that you hadn't grown up with and didn't have this like instant sort of common cultural connection with. The actual academic side of it, I don't know how you feel. I've learned way more in the 20 years since I left uni than I ever, and I don't think it even helped me form a way of thinking or anything like that. I just think like all what you said, all the life lessons were way more valuable in those 3 years. But I do think if I'd have like moved to London and started just being an actor or something, or tried to be, I would have probably picked up a lot of that as well. Yeah.
But it's harder to do that.
Way harder to do that. And you've got less structure, less safety, less like institutional gaps like, being bridged.
Yeah, so universities make them like high schools.
That's like a government strategy session.
Yeah.
That's ended with like, so where do we get to?
Well, this is what interested. Like, what will be interesting now is, and in a mad sort of way, this new Cold War we're going into could be a benefit to us, because most of the beneficial things countries have done for their citizens in the past, they only did it to stay ahead of competition. Yeah. So like, people only started educating their citizens because they thought, do you know what? If they're educated, they'll be better in the army. Do you know what I mean? We might win these wars if we're sending out smart people.
Yeah.
So it's rarely ever altruistic. The only altruistic people that have ever existed in history are the Quakers, as far as I know. You know what I mean? Like, they're the only ones. They're the only good people in the world are Quakers. The only people who've ever sat down and said, do you know what? Let's do this for these people because it's the right nice thing to do. No one else is doing that shit.
Yeah, that was all like this weird period. Was it like the Fry chocolate family and the Roundtree family?
All the chocolate family, yeah. Premier League is down to the Quakers. They give them Saturday off just to have a day of leisure.
So you reminded me then about the Cold War thing. I think we'll wrap up soon, but there's a really interesting seam on YouTube or TikTok you can find of people right-wing people in America who hate the idea of school.
Of school,
because they think it's conditioning for factory work. So their whole mindset. I love this because I love it as like, it's interesting how humans can just form arguments in their head and make anything sound like reality, like objective reality. So their theory is Henry Ford. Like, they all got together, all the capitalists got together, and they were like, we want factories. And how do we condition people for factory work? We get people used to being in a building for 8 hours a day. We get used to, like, school bells exist because it's like you'll get your break and your dinner time like in a factory, and then you basically wait until the factory to start again the next day. And that's the only reason schools exist, is to condition human beings for factory work. And we're meant to be outside. We're meant to be in nature. We're meant to be yada yada yada. P.S. Buy my supplements. You know, like that's
that thing about we're meant to be in nature, meant to be outside. Like, there's loads of nature. There's loads of forest with no go. Like, do you know what I mean? Go. Fucking go. Get your tent. Fuck off. Do you know what I mean? No one's stopping you. No one's stopping you. Go to the Amazon. Fucking pitch up.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, no one's stopping you. And like, let's be honest about it. There's fuck all animals now, so you're not going to be as killed as easily as you would have been.
Jack, how do you leave mean YouTube comments? How do you leave mean YouTube comments?
You wouldn't be able to. You wouldn't be able to.
Because that's what's. But it's really hypocritical. I agree with you. It's like if you've got that strong opinion, and you don't want your child.
You've seen that movie, Captain Fantastic, have you?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can go off.
You can go off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, it doesn't end well, but yeah, sure. Go for it. Yeah, it's true. Have you got any other either bits you're working on, things that are pissing you off, something that you love this week?
Bit I'm working on now is I'm trying to work on this bit. I'm trying to now this could be a fucking fool's errand, but I'm trying to be clever. I want clever material.
Less cum eating.
Less cum eating. Yeah. I want and you know when people say that animals are as smart as humans? Do you ever hear that?
Yeah.
Do you know me? People
Yeah.
go, animals are so intelligent. Oh, they're as smart as humans. Like,
Yeah.
that's bollocks.
Yes.
Let's fucking call that for what it is. That's bollocks. So I'm trying to work it a bit on that. Like, like I'd say, like, take an artist. The artist comes along, brimming with ideas, brimming with creativity, and then people buy into this artist and they worship it and they love listening about them and talking about them and observing them because they're giving them all these new ideas and new thoughts that keeps their negative thoughts away and the whole lot and helps them get through the day and all that. Pigs aren't doing that. Like, pigs aren't fucking doing that. There's not a pig there going, listen lads, I know you're feeling depressed, but do you know what I mean? I got like
just in the slop, like, oh, that's an interesting.
Do you ever notice if you look at the fence from a different angle?
Yeah. Is it a cage or is it actually a viewpoint? Yeah. Do you know have you tried it yet?
What?
Have you tried that bit yet?
No.
So it was interesting. So I have this bit I've been trying about. I think you saw a clip of it, like the pet parent thing.
Yeah.
So it worked as a bit of crowd work in the moment. I've been trying to turn it into a bit. And I'll be interested to know how you go, because the thing I keep stumbling into, honestly, is the minute you mention pets, people or animals, people fuck you.
Oh, well, again, this is a very new thing. This, and I do think there's something in it because, I was finding, do you know when you meet someone and they hate people?
Yeah.
But they make a real point of telling you about how much they love animals.
Yes.
Just so like, I'm not a heartless person. Yeah, I hate people. But you need to know that I'm not like heartless because I fucking love guinea pigs. And it's like, fuck off.
Yeah.
I don't get like, and then, the whole, there's a word, I don't know what the word is, dehumanization of animals,
Yes.
where people start to see animals.
Anthropomorphization.
And say it again?
Anthropomorphization.
Anthropomorphization, yeah. But
Thanks, university.
But no, there you go, you learned something. But yeah, I don't know, I find it makes me, there's something about it that I find a little bit uncomfortable.
Same, and I think so. I think, by the way, I think that's a great premise. I think I could think the way you just sold it, I think, is great because it would force people to confront the idea that, like, dolphins aren't writing fucking the agony and the ecstasy.
Yeah,
like they're not. It's just not happening. But I think in the pet parent bit or in that bit, it's interesting because you're forcing people to confront that reality. That it is a little bit weird to put that level of emotional investment into an animal.
It's there's something, I don't know, like, I'd love to someone to really study the psychology of this, but definitely 100%, like, you're saying with that cat killer and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Videos of animals being tortured or mistreated will cause far much uproar than videos of actual humans being mistreated.
I would say
that's bizarre.
I would say in order, it'd be like animal, human child, human adult. Adult would be at the bottom of that list.
Yeah. Like, listen, if there was dinghies from France
Yes.
full of dogs coming across the channel and drowning,
Yeah.
fuck me.
Wouldn't happen because dogs are not smart enough to use yours.
Oh, but dogs are good swimmers. Are cats good at swimming?
No, famously not. Famously hate.
If they were little dinghies full of cats drowning, there would be. It would just be.
Yeah.
It'd be a whole different scenario.
Oh, I got. I thought of you because you mentioned the small boats thing. So I was working on this. I'm working on this other bit about my family's politics.
Yeah.
About how I come from this family where, like, my dad's super conservative, and growing up, I was chatting to my brother, and I realised over the years how many, like, education. He was like, Tony Blair's only getting people into universities because it keeps unemployment figures down. Like, there was loads of instances growing up where he was like, "Oh, Obama thinks he's hot shit," but there was like so many instances growing up where he just tried to, like, do that narrative. I was like, it's amazing that, like, we've come out as, like, liberal as we are, really. That because my dad was, like, ramming this stuff down our throat, and I just had this line about my dad is he's a real conservative. He's like, small governments, small boats. He's got a house in Spain and Brexit on the brain.
That's a nice little rhyme. Yeah. You're writing poetry now.
Yeah. But it's like, I was aware of, like, because I tried it a few times and people just hate the idea of my dad so much that they wouldn't go with it. So I was trying to find something silly to, like,
I'll tell you something that's quite funny, right? I was doing these Red Raw gigs where you do Edinburgh, Glasgow, and Newcastle.
Yeah.
Right. And Bemi was headlining every night, and Bemi has a bit, and the whole premise of it is about how he found it very difficult when the Queen died that he had to pretend he was
sad,
right? And the first night when he did it in Edinburgh, it's sort of, but then when he was doing it in Glasgow and Newcastle, and he'd say about the Queen die, they're all like cheering and the first night of it, very like so it sort of almost threw him a little bit. You know what I mean? Like he wasn't. I don't think he was expecting it.
Yeah, it's funny that, isn't it? Like, I would have expected it in Glasgow. Newcastle, I could have gone 50-50.
No, I was very. I'd never been to Newcastle. Have you been to Newcastle? I'd never
Years
been.
ago.
I'd
Years
never
ago.
been. Like, and the politics seem to be very much working class, because their big hero is the guy who extended the vote to people who didn't have
Ralmo.
property. Who?
Ralmo.
It was in Newcastle.
No, yeah.
Jesus Christ. No, their big hero is it Earl Grey. Earl Grey. He and I think the tea comes after him. And he extended. So there was they've had a lot of history of like workers' rights and workers' unions. So they're very. I found them very socialistic.
Right.
Kind of vibes.
That makes sense. I was thinking that there might also be like a few like British Bulldog tattoos and.
No, didn't really see that.
Yeah.
Didn't really see that. No, I thought it was a
Isn't
lovely
that funny?
city.
I wonder why Yorkshire, because like Lancashire's quite socialist,
Yeah.
and Yorkshire is incredibly conservative.
But so they were saying that Newcastle is shipbuilding.
Right.
So
unions maybe.
People were saying, that people who lived there said that they felt that there was a few people said this to me. They felt that there was a lot of similarities between Newcastle, Glasgow, and Belfast from the shipbuilding.
And there's not a lot of Northern Irish people go to Newcastle as well? Maybe because of that.
I don't know. I was surprised. I saw a couple of Irish pubs in Newcastle. I was surprised. And Ant and Deck are both from Ireland.
Yeah.
Which, their family. So, but I never would have known it as a place.
I just know like my mates who went to uni there. They had loads of Northern Irish mates.
Oh, did they?
Yeah. So I don't know if that was a thing. But yeah, like Yorkshire's like super
farming.
Just-
What's the main thing in
that's
York?
what
It
it
was
is.
always farming.
farming, and then that wool was like massive during the Empire. Lancashire had cotton, we had wool, and then went all around the world. Yorkshire wool was like
I think.
all around the world. Yeah.
What's the big wool thing now?
What do you mean?
Of where, like, who's famous for wool now?
I guess you get a lot of it from Asia, would you know?
Yeah,
Maybe
I don't know.
textile mills, but yeah, I've always found it funny because like we don't have any art in Yorkshire either. Like Lancashire has all the musicians and actors and playwrights, and Yorkshire does like Alan Bennett, and that's it. Think about how many good bands come from Manchester. We've got like the Kaiser Chiefs. We've got like some middling 2000s
Well,
band.
that's because you're too far east for a strong Irish
I
influence.
agree.
Yeah.
I can completely agree.
Where are the playwrights and the musicians?
I've been saying this for years. I think that Lancashire has this like Celtic lyrical influence. We have a Nordic Protestant influence. Like, Yorkshire's all like Viking towns,
Right.
Because the Pennines was the dividing line. They couldn't move that way. So like Yorkshire's very Protestant and like Nordic, and Lancashire's very lyrical and Catholic and Irish.
Interesting.
I think that's why like, 'cause we grew up in like an Irish Catholic house. I think we
So
feel very different.
I do think it is. Culture strives in oppression.
Yeah.
Because I think if you look at the world now, like most of the most exciting music and art is coming from Black America, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's and I think in the past a lot of it came from Irish communities because of the same
Same
kind of
thing.
thing. So I'm expecting these. How do you pronounce it? Uyghur Muslims. They're going to start right.
Uyghur Muslims?
Uyghur Muslims. They're
Yeah.
going to start like.
You just took a real shot there, didn't you, buddy?
How do you say it? Uyghur?
Uyghur, yeah.
Uyghur Muslims. So they're going to be the next great writers of the world.
Yeah.
You
If
know.
they still have fingers and thumbs left.
Yeah, I'd read those books would be good now. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. No, they would. I think you're right. I think art is the most cathartic way
Well,
of getting through
you know, there was
oppression,
this thing. It was so funny. Like, oh God, like the typical Irish people. Every cloud silver line. So when the economy collapsed in 2008, right,
Yeah.
and everyone's like, oh God, like. So there's loads of people trying to put a nice slant on it. So the big thing that came out is someone wrote a column where it said that like. Switzerland had 500 years of brotherly love, and all they produced was a cuckoo clock.
Yeah.
Whereas Italy had
Under the Borgias.
had chaos
Vinci.
and mayhem and produced all great art. So everyone was like in Ireland, huh?
We just go and wrap up in 3 minutes.
Yeah. So everyone in Ireland was like, yeah, the country's fucked, but like at least the artistic output will be fucking amazing, you know. When's the Brexit artistic output coming?
mate, you're not going to get a lot of artistic output out of an illiterate cohort of the country.
No, but it surely should. It should
Well,
create
it'll end up being like in the 90s. We had Britpop, arguably, because of the austerity under
Thatcher. Yeah.
So maybe it'll be the same. But I think the interesting thing will be like whether or not people feel like any sense of hope. Because even during that period, like in the Blues Brothers, isn't that thing where they go to, no, not Blues Brothers, The Commitments.
Yeah.
They go and collect the dole money,
Yeah.
and they're like stoked because like it's better to be an unemployed musician than an unemployed plumber because everyone was out of work, or like,
Right.
in their communities was out of work. But back then, the dole money would have actually you would have lived off the dole money. There's no way you're living off any
money now.
Yeah, so I think even back then, people had a sense of like not hope, but like I can get through this, or like I can do this. I'd be very interested to see because I think now people are just gonna like disappear into their screens. We're just gonna get like a Ready Player One situation for a lot of disaffected people. That I mean, because why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you just
And on that positive note,
right. So what we learned from this is don't do that. Go to university and vote for Joe Biden.
vote for Joe Biden. He's Irish.
He's Irish. Vote for Joe. Do you know what? If he doesn't use that as a tagline this year, he should. Vote for Joe Biden.
He's Irish.
He's Irish. Jack, tell people where they can find you.
I'm on Instagram, comedian.jack.hester. Bemi showed me this great trick that I didn't do, but I'm going to start doing.
Go on.
Did you know that on Instagram you can click a thing? I bet you all knew this. I didn't know this. You can click a thing that shows a QR code that people can scan, and then they automatically follow you.
I know you can show QR code to people. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's on the settings.
Okay.
You just click. Did you know that, Lucas?
No, I didn't know that.
So you go to settings and you can click QR code, and a QR code will come on your phone, and then he stands after a gig, and people go out, click. Yeah. I'm going to do it at Edinburgh anyway.
Yeah.
Definitely Edinburgh. I'm going to do it this weekend. City Comedy.
Yeah.
Fuck it.
Yeah, great. Because I tell you what, like handing out cards does not work.
Does it not?
Well, people are always very happy to take them. They're always like, "Oh, thank you so much, thank you so much, thank you so much."
The QR thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think directly asking or standing with a scan is the only way. And I'm Thomas Henry Comedy on all platforms. Lucas, thank you so much, pal.
That's all right.
Cheers,
Good to be
Lucas.
And see you guys next week.
That's a wrap.